Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Celebrations with DPS Celebrates, continuing our Black History Month celebration. We're so excited to be here with you this evening. We can't wait for you to see the lineup that we have for you about the influence of race and culture in the media. We're going to be having a panelist discussion this evening, and we're so excited to hear from our guest panelists. Now, before we get started, as you all know, if you have seen any other Beyond the Celebrations events, my name is Melissa Perez. I'm the Culture and Linguistic Development Specialist for Durham Public Schools, and I'm so delighted to be able to be your host this evening for Beyond the Celebrations. So, as you all know as well, that DPS Celebrates committee members are several. It's not just me. We have a whole committee here in Durham Public Schools that helps us decide on the celebrations that we will highlight based on our student population. And if you'd like to know more about our DPS Celebrates committee members, you can visit celebrate.dpsnc.net for more information. And I would be remiss this evening if I did not thank our Durham Public Schools American Sign Language interpreters who have been so faithful in helping us being able to bring our live events to our deaf and hard of hearing audience, as well as our Durham Public Schools Spanish language interpreters. And the one that has been helping us for the last several events has been Miss Tanita Flowers. So about DPS Celebrates, what is DPS Celebrates? Where can you find it? How did it come to be? Well, DPS Celebrates was kind of born out of the pandemic in the efforts to centralize district-wide all of our celebrations. So our committee meets based on in response to our DPS population about what celebrations that we will highlight and feature and provide resources for each month. Now, for the month of February, of course, we're celebrating Black History Month. We're celebrating National Freedom Day, National School Counseling Week, and as we have for every month, we have a character trait of the month, and for February, it is integrity. Now, on our website, celebrate.dpsnc.net, you will be able to find all of our celebrations listed on a monthly calendar. We have flyers available. We like to highlight awareness and provide resources around these resources. You can find those in English and in Spanish. We also have e-library collections, and we have Zoom backgrounds and Bitmoji classrooms available for your use as well to go along with our celebrations for each month. We have resources and lessons teachers can use in class with their students, and that students and community stakeholders can access to celebrate with us as well. Please be sure to tag us on social media so we can add your celebrations to our page, and we'll be sharing our social media handles at the end of this evening's presentation. Now, Black History Month is something that we celebrate in Durham Public Schools, and we celebrate it beyond the 28 days of February. Black History Month is an annual celebration of achievements by Black Americans and a time for recognizing the central role of African Americans in U.S. history. The event grew out of Negro History Week, the brainchild of noted historian Carter G. Woodson and other prominent African Americans. Since 1976, every U.S. president has officially designated the month of February as Black History Month. Other countries around the world, including Canada and the UK, also devote a month to celebrate Black history. We also use the hashtag DBeyond28 because learning about African American history should extend beyond just February. And we know that February is Black History Month, but it can't be contained in just those 28 days. So we, in order to celebrate throughout the year, we know that Black History Month is part of our history. It's a part of each and every one of our histories and should be celebrated 365 days of the year. So join DPS Celebrates events throughout February and March to learn about some of Durham's amazing history for people who lived it, researched it, and documented it. Now, this evening, I would like to bring out from backstage one of our moderators for our panelist events, Dr. Kelvin Bullock. Dr. Bullock, welcome. Good evening. So glad to have this evening. And at this time, I will turn it over to you.
All right. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Daniel Kelvin Bullock, and I am the Executive Director for Equity Affairs for Durham Public Schools. We are so excited for our conversation this evening. We have some wonderful panelists lined up with us. At this time, I would like to introduce our moderator, Miss Crystal Kempson Roberts, who is with our Office of Public Affairs, our communication specialist, and she is going to say a little bit about our panelists. I will also say I am working with one of our panelists to make sure she is able to get into the session. So please bear with us as I am working through a technical difficulty right now, but it's going to work out. All right, Ms. Roberts, if you could go ahead, that would be great.
I'm sorry, somehow my microphone was off. Good evening to everyone. It is wonderful to be here tonight. I am honored to serve as your moderator and would like to introduce our panelists. I am Crystal Kempson Roberts, as Dr. Bullock has shared, and I am a member of the Office of Public Affairs with Durham Public Schools. I'd like to introduce you to our panelists tonight, just so that you will know their names and we can engage with them. Tonight, we have Gilbert Bays, who is a reporter, a longtime reporter with WRAL. Mr. Bays has 3 decades of experience covering news in the Fayetteville area, with topics ranging from local issues to global conflicts impacting the soldiers and families at Fort Bragg. Now, Mr. Bays graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in English with special emphasis in radio and TV broadcasting in 1978 from Central State University in Wilberforce, Ohio. He's originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and has grown to appreciate the beauty of North Carolina from the mountains to the beaches. He has 5 young adult daughters, 2 grown sons, 5 grandsons, 2 granddaughters, and a young godson, too. Mr. Bays, thank you so much and welcome to our panel tonight.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
And Dr. Bullock is working to bring Ms. Victoria Alcindor to the stage, but we'll tell you a little bit about her as well. Now, Victoria is a junior at Riverside High School, and she takes interest in African American studies. She believes the culture is a sacred yet underappreciated art. She's originally from Long Island, New York, and moved to Durham about 4 years ago. At Riverside, she discovered a new passion for journalism while taking Mr. Brian Christopher's newspaper class. This class receives support from the Ida B. Wells Society for Investigative Reporting, which was co-founded by Pulitzer Prize winner Nicole Hannah-Jones. Ms. Alcindor hopes to make a difference in the way that America views people of color through her writing. So we will jump right in, and there she is, Ms. Alcindor. Welcome.
Let's see. And she's been, hold up. Oh, I was checking to make sure she can hear us. She's been working through some technical difficulties.
Okay.
We are excited to have her with us. Victoria, can you hear us?
Not yet.
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
All right.
Okay.
Welcome, Victoria.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Can you hear us?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We've just shared your bio, and we're going to jump right into this conversation because I know that I have been waiting with bated breath ever since we were able to invite you, and the two of you have actually accepted the invitation. So we're going to jump right in. As you've been told, the topic of the discussion tonight is the influence of race and culture in the media. We're going to have a panel discussion with Mr. Bays and Ms. Alcindor about these things. But what we're going to do first is we'll start with you, Gilbert, if you don't mind. If you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself, because what I shared was, didn't even touch the surface, or just scratch the surface. But tell us a little bit more about yourself and what inspired you to pursue a career in news and television journalism.
Well, Chris, I'm going to tell you, and I apologize for the echo in my my audio. I'm in my news bureau. We just moved into a new bureau that's on Hay Street in Fayetteville, and it has very nice hardwood floors, which is great and beautiful, but it's great for karaoke singing, not good for cutting audio. So I apologize for the echo that you hear, but hopefully you'll understand what I'm talking about. You mentioned a couple of things need to be updated. I have 10 grandchildren now.
Wow.
And 7 or 8 adult children, 2 of whom have PhDs and are in education. So I'm very proud of them. One up at the University in Michigan, teaching as a professor, and the other in the Sampson County Schools as an administrator as well. So education runs deeply in our family. I was an education major at Dickinson College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, when I switched to Central State and started majoring my degrees in English, but special emphasis in television, radio broadcasting. And, 73 is when I started. And so next year will be 50 years in broadcasting for me. So I've either been on radio, television, or with the newspaper, even in the military as a public affairs officer. So an awful lot of time spent in the media and understanding how to do this in a number of different ways. I was also an adjunct professor at Campbell University for 15 years. And a lot of people don't know that. I taught 6 courses there. So I'm always encouraging young folks to do this as a profession. We need young Black faces. And Crystal, when you talk about me being inspired to become a journalist, it goes all the way back to church in Philadelphia. I was at the church, and my dad raised 5 boys by himself, and he took us to church every Sunday, and we sat on the front pew, and I sat right beside the guy who was broadcasting the church service. And man, he had this cool microphone and this dial and board, and he was doing all the stuff to put the service on. And I heard him say, we're at Emmanuel Baptist Institute, 22nd in Montgomery, come on out and see Reverend Bentley. And I said, listen to this guy, I can do that. And then growing up in Philadelphia, I was inspired by Fahim Yakamadia, who was on the radio on WDAS in Philadelphia, but he was also on KYW TV. So here's this Black face on TV as a reporter back in the 70s, and also on the air and on the radio on my favorite station. And I said, I can do that. And so now I'm on WRAL and I'm on Foxy 99 every morning, living my dream based on the mentorship and the inspiration of seeing faces like mine do what I'm doing today. And so when you ask me to be involved with this, I couldn't say no, because young Black faces need to see people like them that show that they can make it regardless of meager beginnings. 5 boys in Philadelphia. My dad raised us by himself. And by any sociological standards, I'm supposed to be on drugs, in jail, or dead, but I'm not, because of the mentorship that I've gotten all over the years through my HBCU, through ROTC. I'm a Ranger qualified combat communications officer and served time in the military. All these things played into mentorship and having people who lifted me up and said, you can do it. And so that's why I had to be here tonight, so that I can tell young folks that you can do this. Anyone who has an excuse and says, hey, I can't make it because, I'm poor or I'm not smart enough, you're looking at a perfect example of why you can make it. And so I really appreciate the invitation.
Well, we appreciate you being here, Gilbert, and thank you so very much for those inspiring words, and congratulations on 50 years in the business. That's wonderful. We're going to move to Victoria now, and Victoria, the next question is for you. Can you share with us a little bit about the journalism class that you're taking? What inspired you to register for it, and some of the things that you've learned? Share that with us.
So I obviously go to Riverside, and I'm taking news journalism. It's funded by the Ida B. Wells Society, and I don't know if you've seen the news segment, but it covers that on there. I actually did not register for this class. I had the instructor, Mr. Christopher. I had him as an English 2 teacher. And there he would give us weekly assignments on writing and everything. But the pandemic, I really didn't register for classes, so I was kind of put in everything. And I seen my schedule, and I saw newspaper journalism, and it was on 2 semesters. I didn't know why. And I went to ask him, I said, why is this on 2 semesters? And he said he read my writing, and he saw my work, and he saw my potential. So he took the initiative to put me in the program. And I thought that I love that, because now I love to write. I love journalism. And in the class, we go over how to cite sources, how to get data, what's opinion, what's fact. And it's really it's something for everyone to do, because there's so many different branches. We have people who write, photographers, the broadcast, podcast. It's so many different things to do. So it's not a strict curriculum. And I think it's a great opportunity. I'm so glad that he put me in the class.
Thank you so much, Victoria, for sharing with us what it is that really drove you to stay in that class. Don't you love it when teachers take interest in you and they see something in you and you're able to take that baton and run with it? So here is a question for both of you. Yes, ma'am. Here's a question for both of you. What are some of the ways that you feel media does a good job of uplifting historically marginalized communities, i.e., Black communities? And then part B of that question, what are some areas for growth? So where is the media doing a good job, and what are some areas for growth? Who'd like to go first?
Well, I'll chime in there.
Okay.
Because I guess I do it every day. It's what we do. We never know what the assignment is going to be when you're out here. As a general assignment reporter, you get your story in the morning. But I'm always trying to toss out some stories that are positive in the community. And we can't wait until Black History Month to talk about Black history. There are things that happen throughout the year, and I'm always fighting for good stories. And I tell everyone, I used to be amazed, but now I'm amused that when you try to do a good story, a lot of times you run into red tape. When you want to do a bad story, you just walk up to the yellow tape and take all the pictures of the crime scene that you want. And so, I'm thinking that we can do a better job in making good stories available without the red tape. And we find this an awful lot in education, especially. Everyone, wants to make sure they're not going to lose their job. They don't want to say something wrong. And I understand that. But it can't be at the cost of a good story that we want to tell, especially when it deals with our young folks of color. And so, I think we do a good job at trying to identify these stories, and we have to look beyond the sports images and the heroes of the games. We have to celebrate those young folks who are making achievements in education or doing great things in their community, and look for those stories and make those prominent in the newscast. Unfortunately, we're still in an era where if it bleeds, it leads. And so, we it's hard to get time for the good stories, the good news stories. But stations are making, I think, more progress in trying to make sure that there is an avenue for those good stories out there.
Thank you, Gilbert. Victoria, what do you have to say about this?
This question kind of correlates to the story I'm working on now, and it's an investigative story. And the overall question is, why isn't Black history taught? And yes, it's Black History Month, but our history doesn't go past, as far as taught in America, our history doesn't go past slavery. When you think of Black history, we think of slaves, and it goes so much further than that. And I don't think that's taught, and I don't think that's portrayed in the media. And I think that's where it needs to grow. But as far as having subjects to look at, I think there are positive Black people in our community and that are portrayed in the media. But like Mr. Gilbert said, it goes so much further than the sports and the music, and that's very much underrepresented.
Thank you very much for that. Here's another question for both of you. How would you describe the influence of race and culture in the media? Or how is what is represented to people in the media influenced by race and culture?
Well, you bring up a good point, Crystal, because you when you talk about race and you talk about culture, I don't think people understand the difference between the two. And I was listening to Denzel Washington talk about his movie and the difference between the two. And so it's important for people of all color to understand the difference between race and culture. And so, the media is not necessarily focusing on that discussion and trying to explain it. And so it is important for our schools and parents especially to talk about those issues and making sure we understand the difference between the two, what's cultural and what's considered racial. We are living in a very special time. And for me to be in broadcasting for 50 years in one way or another, I've seen the changes. And, when you think back to the 1960s and the images of Martin Luther King and all the protests that are going on and people being bit by dogs and fire hosed, for our kids, that is ancient history. For me, my parents and I lived that. And so to see those images, and here we are 50 years later, and we have George Floyd, and we're still seeing the same types of images, and we're still seeing the same types of songs, and we're still doing the same types of marches, and we're still celebrating the first Black this, the first Black that. And I'm shaking my head saying it is hard to believe that has to be the focus of the celebration. I think that we really need to just focus on the fact that there have always been very intelligent young Black men and women who have been successful. We just haven't heard about them. And so the media can play a good part in celebrating those voices, those images, as opposed to the negative images that we see many times that are displayed on our television stations.
Thank you. Victoria?
I think as Black people, we are the culture, especially in America. I think in a lot of ways we set the foundation, but as far as it being portrayed in the media is lacking. In media, we don't get credit enough for what we create, what we contribute to the culture. And it doesn't even have to be just Black culture, but as Black people, we have made American culture. And it goes to trends, to styles, like even modern. just dances. Having something as a community is something that we as Black people we've greatly contributed to. Um, I feel like there is a lacking of credit portrayed in the media. I feel that it's common in the media work. We're portrayed as ignorant, as ghetto, as dumb. It just is. It's very hard to speak about because it's personal, and as a Black woman, it affects me a lot. But I just feel as though in the media we have such a negative connotation of being Black, and we're kind of like the foundation, the what's the word? We're the stone. We're the foundation to our culture, to American culture, to our society. I feel without Black people, there would be no culture.
Yeah,
Thank you
Miss
for
Roberts,
that.
I wanted to
Mhm.
jump in for a
Mhm.
little bit, and also thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Mr. Bays, for lifting up what you have. And I do want to give a special shout out to Mr. Christopher, who is Victoria's teacher, again for identifying just the gifts and talents that she had or she has, and encouraging her to enroll in this class. And that's what I'm hearing is like that representation, that ability to see the gifts and talents in our Black youth, in Black culture in general, is also something we want to see, represented more so in the media. And one of the ways you do that is you get diverse people around the table to tell their stories. And so it makes a difference when you're able to bring Victoria into class and she's able to do a story about like cultural appropriation related to Black hair, which is an article she recently released through the school newspaper. And just thinking about like that representation, diverse representation of what it means to be Black, diverse representation of Black culture, diverse representation of Black intellect, in saying that, yes, we have had the Virgil Ablohs who have a profound impact in style and culture, so we have that impact, but also, we could learn more about Black mathematicians, Black astronauts, Black lawyers, Black doctors, Black reporters who have used their positions to advocate for more justice and more equity in society. Like there's so much that can be done there, and I just think the contributions that we're hearing about this evening from Mr. Bays and Miss Alcindor here, like these are the types of conversations, this is the type of work that needs to happen, and we need to be very intentional about having diverse voices at the table, particularly when we're thinking about the media, because what people see and what people hear is going to influence their lives moving forward. Just like Mr. Bay said earlier about what he was able to see in the media growing up influenced his ultimate life decisions.
Can I ask a question? And Victoria, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. How old are you?
I'm 16.
16. And I'm 66.
Yeah.
So do the math here. The difference between us in age, and yet we are on the same path of trying to do things in our community in a positive way. I just want to tell you, I appreciate you, and I challenge you to take my job, and I look forward to it. Okay?
Thank you. That means a lot.
Okay. I'm gonna be looking for you.
There you have it. We heard it here, didn't we, Dr. Bullock? we heard it here.
We
So,
did.
Victoria, you were talking about how this makes you feel. And so I'd like for both of you to think about a statement and complete it. And it will be based on your feelings. We know the facts. Okay, we know the facts. We also know how the facts make us feel. So, how would you complete this following statement? When I think of the media and Black communities historically, I think of what? When I think of the media and Black communities historically, I think of.
I think of a lack of representation. And I mean that on both sides of the camera, that we don't seek out stories that impact the Black community. We're doing much better about that now. I want to point that out. But when you talk about over the long haul, from the time I was growing up, you just didn't see stories in the Black community that were other than crime related or sports related. But we're doing better. We're doing real good now, as a matter of fact. We're not doing better. I think we're doing really well. But I think of just the fact that there has been an underrepresentation in the community in terms of stories, and there was an underrepresentation of people on this side of the camera. And I look at Channel 5 now as a perfect example. At all the beautiful Black faces that I see on the air, I'm so proud of our staff and the professionalism of the entire staff. Again, I'm like the grandpa, of all the reporters. Everyone is so young now, and the technology has changed, so much that it is amazing to be a part of it. And I look to the future of young Victoria's doing the next part in this.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Hey, Miss Roberts, and well,
Mhm.
first of all, am I frozen on the screen? That's
No.
okay. Just want to make sure. Sometimes things are freezing for
Right.
me. So,
Now you
and
are.
I did
Okay.
want to jump in on this question because just thinking about the the relationship of the media and Black communities historically, and I want to kind of segue, I guess, into Victoria because the class that she's in a class that's supported by the Ida B. Wells Society, right? And in thinking about investigative reporting historically in Black communities and the sharing of information. So even going back before we had television, just the written word and journalism and the power that that had to inform Black communities about things that were going on, about dangers that were existing in different parts of the United States. Looking at that historically, we could think about like the Chicago Defender, who Ida B. Wells wrote for. That newspaper was a major source of information to spread the word about what was occurring with Black people in the South as it related to lynchings. And even here in North Carolina, we have the historic Wilmington Massacre of 1898, which when that happened, it was a response to the success of the Black community, which was centered on the Black newspaper that was being produced in Wilmington. And so that success that was just generated through Black people being able to share information, Black people being able to help educate others about different things that were going on. There are so many things we can discuss when it comes to the relationship of the media, whether it's newspaper, whether it's television, whether it's radio, as a source of sharing information in Black communities. And also just because sometimes when we think about the media, we do make it specific to the images we might see on TV. But when we're also thinking about media, we're thinking about information that's being shared. And Black community, there's a strong history of Black communities utilizing journalism, all forms of journalism, to share information with their communities in order to bring about change. So that's also something we want to lift up in thinking about, this question and the history of Black people in the media. So, all right, I'm gonna be quiet again. You can we can go to our
No,
next
you don't
person.
need
I
to be
just wanted to
quiet
share
because
that.
the history is important. The history is important. And so your background is very important here, Dr. Bullock. Very important. I would just ask you, when you think of the media and Black communities historically, what do you think of?
Oh yeah, well, me, I just think of again that sharing of information, that
Mm.
dissemination of information into Black communities, and when we hold a pen, when we hold a microphone, we hold a powerful tool for educating and bringing about change. And so again, I'm just in awe of what Mr. Bays is doing and has done for decades, right? And what Victoria is kind of, she's just stepping into, but should she choose this path, has a wonderful bright future in utilizing media to improve outcomes for historically marginalized communities, particularly Black communities.
Thank you, Dr. Bullock. Victoria, what do you think of when you think of the media and Black communities historically?
Well, I feel bad now because everyone had this positive outlook on the statement. But when I hear it, I think of oppression.
Okay.
Um, I think of the fact that as a community, we're still to this day, I believe, is seen as less than. And like Mr. Baz and Mr. Bullock has said, there has been Black people who held the microphone, who um, connected with others through journalism and telling our stories to each other. But I feel like in order to make change, it needs to reach more than just our community. It needs to reach the greater mass. It needs to reach the 76% of the country that sees us as less than. So
We can appreciate that. And so while Mr. Bays wants to pass the baton to you, perhaps he is our local celebrity, although Gilbert, you've been all over the place. You've been all over the place. And Victoria may end up in another part of the world representing us. So, I believe that we have to be everywhere. So thank you so much, Victoria, for sharing that. And that's why I prefaced it with tell me how you feel, because that's what we want to know. So let me ask you, Victoria, what are some articles that you are working on? You were just telling us about an article that you were working on that was related to one of the questions. What else are you working on? And how has race and culture been a part of that writing?
So I'm not gonna act like I have all this tons of experience because I don't. I just got into investigative writing this year. As I've said, I was put in the class because Mr. Christopher was God given to see my potential. So, like Mr. Bullock has said, I've worked on cultural appropriation and how it relates to Black hair, and now I'm working on the history. Like, why is our history not taught? And as the oppressed people, and it goes back to ancient civilizations where the oppressed are the building blocks of a successful civilization, are stripped of their culture, are stripped of their history. Um, and that just, it goes to say that, like, the whole conversation has been about, we need more representation of successful Black people outside of sports, outside of music. We need lawyers and doctors. It shouldn't just be, it shouldn't majority be non-color people. I feel as though I shouldn't sit in an engineering class and truthfully look around and I be the only Black person. That gets to me. So I think because I'm a Black woman and because I have that experience and that drive, that's really what pushes through my stories. So I don't have a lot now, but future, I truly hope to change that. I'm hoping to work on a lot of pieces because I enjoy writing. So, yeah.
That's great to know. And Gilbert can probably tell you that one story could make a whole world of difference. Just one story. Gilbert, when you think about, you talked a little bit about your upbringing and sitting on that church pew and sitting next to the announcer. When you think about that upbringing, how does that influence your perspective of Black people in the media and Black history?
Well, I think we all get here one way or another. I mean, for me, it was a desire at a very young age to be in broadcasting. And I'm from Philadelphia. And so I was motivated by Dr. Perry Johnson on WDAS in Philadelphia, Georgie Woods. And so in the 60s, radio, and that was the main source of media. You didn't see many Black folk anchoring the news back then. And then when you did, it really stood out. And so I'm glad to see that it doesn't stand out so much anymore. But when you're coming along, you're looking for those faces as mentors. A lot of people don't know that. I'm a DJ. A lot of people know me more as a DJ than they do as a television announcer. I'm the master of the super mix, and I played at all the clubs around here. I even play up in Raleigh now at a place doing karaoke on Sunday, and I did skating for 29 years, every Thursday and Sunday at the skating rink here in Fayetteville. J. Cole just shouted me out not too long ago, saying I was a legend because he was a floor guard when I was the DJ at the skating rink. And I share this with you, not to brag on the fact that I've been a DJ that long, but people would come up to me and say, why are you're on TV. Why are you DJing at the skating rink? I said, because Black faces need to see a Black face that they can touch. And those kids can see me at the skating rink and they see me on TV. And so we're no good as role models. We have to be mentors. Kids have to be able to touch us. And so it is important now for me to come on this show so kids can reach out and hear and touch me and know they see me all the time in the grocery store. I had a woman say, hey, he's Gilbert Bates. I said, I got to eat too. We're just regular people. And so it is important for us to be mentors. After all these years, that's all I have left. I've been around the world telling stories. All I can do now is be a mentor to people like Victoria.
We thank you for that. And I don't know how much time I have. Do I have time to ask one or two more questions, Dr. Bullock? It's 6:43.
I think you do. And
okay.
and I know I want to take a moment of personal privilege too, and just affirm some of the things Victoria shared. Like Victoria, again, I mean, thank you to both of our panelists. Victoria, as a student, like the perspective that you shared earlier, and thinking about what you see wasn't necessarily aligned. You felt with what Mr. Bays and I were sharing, but your perspective was 100% valid, and that's your perspective, and there was truth in what you said, and just in you sharing that, it was challenging me to think about how it is important for us to have these types of conversations within Black communities, but there are times where we're not the ones in power to ultimately change entire systems, and it has to be a broader conversation involving other people who may be in leadership positions that are making decisions that ultimately impact us. And so I just want to thank you for lifting that up. Thank you for your insight, and just I wanted to make sure you are heard and affirmed in this space. Like, that's why you're here. That's
Hey, let me
exactly
say,
what
let me add to that, Dr. Bullock, because Victoria, I want to tell you something. One thing as a young journalist, don't you ever apologize for your opinion. You are the voice of the voiceless, and your opinion may not be popular with everyone else, but we depend on you to be the voice for the voiceless. Never, ever apologize when you have a different opinion of what you've heard someone else say. You speak up. That's what you need to do. And you did a fine job at doing that, okay?
Thank you.
And thank you for that. Dr. Bullock and I are on the same page because I wanted to affirm Victoria's comments as well and ask you, Victoria, while you have a legend sitting next to you or next to you on the screen in Gilbert Bays.
Oh, I want to meet him.
You know, so we know that Mr. Brian Christopher is an ally, an advocate. He's a mentor for you. He advocates. What is it that you would like to ask Mr. Bays as you work towards becoming or work on your voice? What would you like to ask him while he's sitting right here?
I would ask, how do you, like you say, my opinion is important, but how do I give my opinion without making others feel uncomfortable?
Well, let me clarify, because as a reporter, it's not my opinion. I am reporting what everyone else says without my opinion. So if you're going to use your opinion, then that's an editorial. Right. So that's different type of writing. Right. It's people come to me to gather the facts and present the facts of a story. And what you find, Victoria, is that there's always two sides to a story. And I found there's 2, 3, 4, 5 sides of a story. So what you have to do, the challenge for you, is to get to the facts and find the facts and present the facts, and then let your readers decide. And so we make a mistake sometimes if we're not an editorial writer, that we bring our personal feelings in on stories that we write. And as a journalist, you really can't do that. So there's two different sides of what you're doing. And so if you're dealing with your emotions about a particular story, you have to wear that off the sleeves, and not take things personally, and just write the facts. And we're all going to be influenced by our personal experiences and things like that. But your job as a journalist is to gather the facts and present the story that way. And so your emotion gives you the passion to find out the facts. And that's what I want you to understand. Don't apologize for your emotions. My emotions every day gets me in trouble. There are a lot of people don't like me because Gilbert's coming, it's got to be trouble. And they don't like the questions that I ask. But your challenge as a young reporter is to ask tough questions of people in power. That's what you have to do. And people are not going to like you for that. So you keep using your emotion and your feelings about things, because that's the thing that's going to guide you to make sure people are telling you the truth. I hope that helps.
Yeah, and I definitely had to deal with, reeling back on opinions, especially in my hair cultural appropriation piece. I'm so glad Mr. Christopher was there, because it was certain points where I had such strong opinions because it affects me so directly, and I just have to keep learning to reel it back and just give the facts, and like you said, let the readers decide what they want.
Well, you're going to learn that, and you're a good one. I can see that right now. You're going to learn that. You're going to do fine.
We want to bring it.
You.
Dr. Bullock, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'll just say quickly. First of all, in agreement with everything Mr. Bays has shared, and in this work that we do with equity, we have to have a lot of conversations about truth and about facts that has the potential to make people uncomfortable. And I mean, that's the nature of the work. But we have to tell the truth, and the truth will stand. People will try to come against it. They'll try to break it down and tear it apart, but the truth is the truth. And as a journalist, I can imagine that that's a part of what you're aiming to do, is to share that truth, share those facts, and then people are going to make of it what they may. But your responsibility is to share the truth, and we'll just see where the cards fall. I also want to quickly, we didn't do this on our last conversation like this. So I do want to acknowledge board member Valladares, who has joined us this evening. I see that she's in the thread and has shared some comments. And I also want to give a shout out. The last time we had one of these conversations, board member Bayer joined us, and I failed to acknowledge that she was on that session. So I just wanted to give a shout out to our board members who have joined this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Bullock. I don't know how much time we have left, but if I were to bring this conversation back around to the race and culture topic that we started with, and how the media is influenced by race and culture. What would you say your challenge is and still is, Gilbert, after 50 years? And you've seen changes, but it seems like even though things are changing, the more things change, the more they stay the same. We're still fighting the same fight. So how would you leave us with your thoughts about race and culture, just kind of being the story, if you will?
Well, as I said before, we are in a very unique time, from things that happened in the 60s, and then you have George Floyd, and he was from Fayetteville. His sister Bridget, I met her and found out she was in Hope County. These stories just proliferate through. It just seems every day we're always dealing with these issues, either through police shootings or community unrest. One of the newest issues is the fact that you have a lot of folks in marginalized communities being ousted out of their homes because of gentrification, and where are folks going to go? So there's so many stories in the Black community that have nothing to do with crime, that has everything to do with just the community's total existence. As Dr. Bullock mentioned the story in Wilmington, where when you have a successful Black community, and because of racism, it's burned to the ground. We've had that happen in a number of different communities across the country. That you don't want history to repeat itself, and unfortunately, it seems like history is repeating itself. And so it is our challenge as journalists to point that out and make sure that we don't have disastrous situations like we've had in the 1920s, in the 40s and 50s. And so we have to look to the history of the Black community if we're going to look to the future of where we're going.
Thank you so much for that. And Victoria, to the young lady on a mission, what kinds of stories would you like to write? What would you like to pen and stroke for others to read and really ponder about and take action around?
And this can expand over time, but as of right now, I really enjoy embodying minority groups and telling their stories. Because although it might not be on a national level, but I have some type of platform through the school website, and it can reach someone who may not be a part of the minority group. And like Mr. Bullock has said, we need to reach the people in power. We need to reach out of our own communities to make change. And so I just hope to partake in the process of doing that.
And we know that you will. We know that you will. Dr. Bullock, do you have any additional comments?
I do not. I'm just thankful to our panelists. I'm thankful to our moderator. I'm thankful to our interpreters, because we have our sign language interpreter. We also have our Spanish interpretation going on. So I'm just thankful to everyone for coming together and making this happen. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Mr. Bays. And that's it. And I think we're ready for our closing comments and everything.
Before we do that, can I do one thing?
Yes.
Yes, you can.
Unfortunately, the professor in me sees a teachable moment. And so, Victoria, I need you to make an adjustment for me. Are you on a laptop? Victoria, can you hear me? Victoria, are you on a laptop?
Yes.
Okay. You have what we call too
Can you
much
hear me?
headroom. Yes, you have too much headroom. So I want to make you adjust your camera so that the next time you do one of these things, you're going to be front and center looking strong. So you need to tilt your camera down a little. Can you tilt your laptop down a little bit? Can you hear me okay? Can you tilt it down a little bit, the top? There you go. Move up a little closer. There you go. There's a Victoria we know and love. There you go, honey. There, now see, now look, the next time you do want to see, this is a teachable moment, okay? And this is what you do. You point out things. I should have said this at the beginning, and I slapped myself for not doing it. You never want that much headroom on your shot, okay? As a broadcaster, because I'm looking at your chin. Now we have a very good shot of you, and you can adjust that. So when you get ready to do reports like this, make sure you don't have too much headroom, and now you look really good on the screen. And the Professor Bays should have made that adjustment for you, but this was not my thing. So, but it's a teachable moment. I couldn't resist. So now we love you. You're perfect. Okay. So you make that adjustment yourself. So you've learned something here about using the social media and how you set it up. Okay. Much better look.
We thank you so very much, Gilbert and Victoria. We appreciate your time. We appreciate what you have brought to this discussion. Gilbert, again, congratulations on a storied career, and we hope to see you another 50 years. And Victoria, we hope to see you out there for 50 years or more. So we appreciate you. And Dr. Bullock, thank you. Ms. Perez, thank you for this opportunity tonight.
I would like to echo the evening, the big thanks to our panelists, to Mr. Bays, to Professor Bays. Once a teacher, always a teacher. You speak right to my heart. Thank you so much, Victoria, for being here, for speaking your truth, for sharing with us. Ms. Roberts, such a pleasure to have you this evening from Public Affairs. And as always, Dr. Bullock, the tremendous work that you all do in Equity Affairs. Thank you for being part of DPS Celebrates and helping us celebrate Black History Month beyond the 28 days of February and 365 days a year. Thank you again to all of you. Thank you, Sarah, for interpreting for us, and thank you to our Spanish interpreter as well. At this time, we would like to take a look forward to next week. Next week, we are so excited about our upcoming event to celebrate Crown Act Week, and really want to thank and shout out Dr. Ida Hoare for all her wonderful work to put together this event. We will be coming to you live from Hillside High School, and we will have a wonderful panelist of women to share with us about the presence, power, and politics of Crown. We're very excited. We hope to see you live next week, or maybe even in person at Hillside High School, and hope that you will be able to join us then. For more information about next week, please visit us at celebrate.dpsnc.net for more information. You can also register. You do have to register for this event, and I have the registration link bit.ly for you here. If you're interested in attending in person, please be sure and register in order to be able to attend. Again, thank you everyone for being here this evening. Please follow us on social media. You see our handles here below. That way we can reshare your celebration posts and celebrate with you. Use hashtag celebrate. Thanks again, everyone. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next Monday. Have a great evening.